coming to our first event for the Havehill Overdose Prevention and Education Task Force, which we've named HOPE, because we hope that it's going to be a positive experience where people can learn more about resources and treatment. And this is Karen Pugh. Karen and I are the co-chairs of the task force, so she has some thank yous.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of our elected officials that have taken the time out of their evening to come and join us tonight for this very important topic. So I just wanted to acknowledge our mayor, Mayor Fiorentini here tonight, Councilor Scotamaccia, I know I saw you somewhere, Councilor LePage, Councilor Sullivan, Councilor Ryan, Councilor McGonigal, Councilor Barrett, Representative Dempsey, thank you for being here tonight. Linda Dean Campbell, Representative. Senator Katie O'Connor-Ives, thank you. Diana DiZoglio, thank you for being here. We have a couple school committee members here with us tonight. Maura Ryan Ciradello, wave out there, Maura. Scott Wood, Scott. And did I not see anybody else? Is there anybody else out there? Thank you folks for being here with us tonight. We really greatly appreciate your support behind this initiative. So thank you for being here.
So we're going to start with the mayor. He's going to introduce to you how the task force got started. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. What a great turnout. Thank you all for coming. And about 2 months ago, we all saw some of the statistics that were in the newspaper about the terrible crisis in heroin overdose deaths that were hitting our nation, our city, our region. And I was shocked by it, as I'm certain that some of you were. I thought I knew something about heroin and heroin overdoses. I've known people for 45 years that have struggled with this addiction problem. As a Vista volunteer in the 1960s, I lost a friend through a heroin overdose, so I thought I knew something about it. But it turns out I didn't. We put together this task force, which at that time was called the Mayor's Task Force on Heroin Overdoses. And I told them their first job was to educate me. What's the problem? What can we do to solve it? What further resources can we as a city put on this? And then our second task was to educate the public. What can we do as a public? Because only as a united public are we going to solve this. What can we do as a public to recognize the problem, if it's in our own families, as it is with almost every person in Havehill? And where can we turn to for resources? Now, this is not just a Havehill problem. This is a national problem. The leading cause of death in the state of Ohio last year was heroin overdoses. Taunton had something like 20 or I think 100 heroin overdoses over the past couple of months. Long Island is suffering, as New York City is, from the greatest number of heroin overdoses ever. We're concentrating on Havehill. Our problem isn't unique, but we hope our solution is unique, uniting the entire community to try and do something about this. Tonight's forum is going to concentrate on two things. What you can look for in your own family if you suspect that someone is suffering from this terrible problem. And number two, what resources are available to you in order to be able to assist. So let me turn it over to the panel that we've put together, and we're going to have plenty of time afterwards for questions and answers. Thank you all again for coming. I do want to acknowledge Council President Mitchison has joined us. I do want to acknowledge that the state legislature has been working on this problem and has a number of initiatives that they've put forward. And would anyone from the legislature like to mention those, or is that, I'd like to introduce the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, our own Havehill guy, Brian Dempsey.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and I will be very brief, but on behalf of the delegation, Senator Katie O'Connor-Ives, Representative Linda Dean Campbell, and Representative Diana DiZoglio, we wanted to join with you this evening because we clearly understand both the magnitude and the importance of this issue. This issue is simply heartbreaking. To look at the number of young adults, teens, middle-aged, it has affected the entire Commonwealth, every spectrum, as we know. And it is a heartbreaking situation. And as I chatted with the mayor yesterday, I want to again acknowledge the work that you're doing locally, and we appreciate the work of the task force and all the things that you're doing. That we stand ready to continue efforts at the state level to assist you. As the mayor mentioned, while we have seen a spike in Haverhill since November, clearly this is an issue that we have seen statewide for well over a year and a half. The first 2 months of last year, we saw 100 overdoses in the city of Taunton. That led both Governor Patrick to declare a state of emergency, a public health crisis, and it caused the legislature to take significant steps, both in terms of increasing budget, as well as making some significant policy changes with respect to treatment, with respect to coverage, and with respect to making sure that we are providing the opportunity for individuals that need treatment to get that treatment as quickly as possible. Some very significant steps. And it's ranging the spectrum from monitoring prescriptions to education to changing our drug trafficking penalties and increasing that from 20 years to 30 years. We have looked at the spectrum. We have more work to do. And we join with you tonight in partnering with you, and we'll take your ideas and suggestions back and continue to work with you to do all that we can as we face this crisis, this epidemic. As the mayor pointed out, it's not exclusive to Haverhill. It's not exclusive to the Commonwealth. But we come together tonight as Haverhill citizens to do everything we possibly can, and the delegation joins with you in that effort. Thank you all for being here this evening.
So we have some speakers here to share their personal stories, but we also have some more information to share. There was some new statistics that just came out. I just got them yesterday, I think, from the Department of Public Health. And they're more information about the level of the problem in Massachusetts. It's not just Massachusetts, but as you can see here, the statistics are about a year behind. So in 2013, there were about 983 unintentional, undetermined overdose deaths. And this, it shows that there's about a 30% increase from 2012 to 2013. And I'm going to skip ahead some specific information about Haverhill. It is a statewide problem. You can see here heroin. This is number of enrollments by drug into treatment programs. By primary drug. People are asked to list what their primary drug is when they go into a treatment program. So there were 49% listed heroin, 7% listed other opiates, so it's really high. For the city of Haverhill, it's really hard to read. 65% were male, 60% were between the ages of 21 and 39, 85% white, 66% never married, only 24% were employed, 12% homeless, 53% had prior mental health treatment. So it kind of tells you what that group looks like. Primary substance abuse, again, in Haverhill, you can see heroin is 36%, statewide 43%, so it's similar. And then City of Haverhill, these are all the different drugs. People list their primary drug and then they list any drugs of use. So the number of people in 2012 going into treatment who listed heroin as one of their drugs of use was 40%, so it's still quite high. And I wanted to list a few signs for some of the families that are here, how to recognize if you have a family member who might be having a problem with drugs. You're going to hear a lot more about this from the speakers that we have in a minute, but I just want to list a few things. So one of the things you look for is obviously major changes in their behavior, changes in who they spend their time with, changes in friends, changes in their school or work performance. Maybe they don't want to get up in the morning to go to work or school. Mood swings, increased irritability. Maybe they're starting to steal, not tell the truth. Discontinuing healthy activities. Maybe they used to work out. Maybe they used to have some healthy friends or hobbies, and they're not doing any of those things anymore. and some unusual physical symptoms. Some of the symptoms, and these are specific to opiates because that's mainly what we're here to talk about. So it could be pinpointed pupils with little tiny pupils, appears very tired, falling in and out of sleep, sweating, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, body aches. So these can be signs of someone who's used an opiate and then is withdrawing from the opiate. And then what you can do to help. There's way too many things here to list, but I think the biggest thing is also to get some help for yourself. There's Al-Anon and Alateen that they have at Leahy Behavioral Health on Tuesdays. At TCA, we're starting a parent support group. At Sacred Hearts, there's a parent support group starting. I'll tell you a little bit later the dates and times of those. But to encourage your family member to get help, to get treatment, to be supportive, to encourage them to do positive, healthy things, maybe to get them some education about drugs. But again, we're going to hear some more about this from our speakers. So I want to hand it over to Steve from Greater Lawrence Family Health Center. He's going to talk a little bit about how to recognize an overdose and what to do.
Sure.
Steve?
So, like Kim said, I'm from Greater Lawrence Family Health Center, and primarily we've been working with TCA on Tuesdays and Thursdays now to distribute Narcan to the community for free. And I just wanted to let everyone else know that there is a standing order at Walgreens that if you do need Narcan, you can get it at Walgreens on Main Street. The retail cost is about $45. Or you can pick it up at one of the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center pharmacies. And it's usually covered by most insurances, so it'll cost about $3 for a copay, generally. So if you do need it, it is available, besides just when I'm here in Havehill. But as far as signs of an overdose, the most common is the person will turn blue. Or if it's a darker skinned person, then they'll turn purple. It's a change in color. For the skin, generally the easiest spots to see it are in the lips or in the fingernail beds. We should all have pink, rosy fingernail beds. If they're changing colors, the person is not breathing well enough to sustain their life. So they'll turn colors. Second major sign would be you would hear what we call the death gargle. It sounds similar to a snore, but a little bit wetter. And what that shows you is that the brain does not have enough function in it anymore to swallow the saliva in their throat. So at this point, they are actively overdosing. They're breathing, but they're breathing through a lot of junk in their throat. So it's a distinct noise. It's not quite a snore, but that's the closest thing, unless you've heard it, to describe it. That's the easiest way. And the last major thing to tell if somebody is actively overdosing is a response to pain. We hear some horror stories about how people inflict pain to see if they respond to it. But what we ask, and I'm sure the police department would agree, is a safe way to check for pain, and that's a sternal rub. What you do is you make a fist. You don't mind?
I think everybody should do it, frankly.
Yeah, you guys can do it to yourself. It's painful. But yeah. So you make a fist, and essentially you grind your knuckles into the sternum or the breastbone. You rub up and down aggressively. That should generally get a pain response. In a time like now, there's another technique that we also tell people. If they're bundled up, for instance, I've got 3 layers on because it's cold out, it's hard to get to the sternum. Grab underneath their lip, underneath their nose, and rub their gum really hard. If you get their lip and you rub your nose and here really hard with your knuckle, it should cause a pain response. You should not want that to happen to you anymore. The same area in your brain that responds to pain is the same area that you breathe, that keeps you breathing without thinking about it. If you touch something hot, you naturally react to it. If you get poked by something, you move. You don't think about moving, similar to the way you don't think about breathing. So if they're not responding to pain, they're actively overdosing. That's the safest way to, or the most extreme way to know that that part of their brain is shutting down. So what we tell people to do, and again, we can distribute Narcan if you do usually a 20-minute in-service with us. or if you get it from one of the pharmacies. At this point, you would call 911 is always the first thing. Even if you have Narcan, 911 is always your first thing. After that, you would assemble the Narcan and administer the Narcan to the person. Then, again, if they're not breathing, you have to rescue breathe for this person. Essentially, the Narcan generally takes about 1 to 3 minutes to work. If it doesn't work in 1 to 3 minutes, we give you 2 doses, so you would use the second dose. In 3 minutes of not breathing, a person can start to develop brain damage. So you can save somebody too late. They could have some severe problems with it after if you wait too long. So don't ever wait long to do Narcan. If you have it available and you question it, do it. You can't hurt somebody with Narcan. You can only save them. And then if you use Narcan on somebody, it's only going to last between 30 and 90 minutes, is what the state says. Statistically, we hear, when we get report backs, that it only lasts about 30 minutes. So it's only going to last long enough to get them to the hospital. This is why, again, the first thing you ever do in the event of an overdose is call 911, because you have to get that person to the hospital. An overdose can last much longer than 30 minutes. So it's pretty imperative that you call 911 to make sure you save their lives. That's really all I have.
Thank you, Steve. Our next speaker is Charles Rosa. He's going to share a little bit of his story.
Can you get around that way?
I put his website up here in case anybody's interested. You can get some more information. Do you want to show it first? Okay. We're going to show a little video first.
Tonight on Chronicle.
The water's right around 38 right now, and feels pretty good. It's good for me.
He dives into the ocean every day just to make a point.
Down here at the bay in Hampton, it says it's 15 degrees, and I think it says it's -2 or something out. It's very snowy.
Chucky's fight, making waves in the war against drug abuse.
In my own small, quiet way, I feel good that I am making a difference. Sometimes I visualize that it's sunny out and it's nice out, and I walk down and I bless myself and I go in. It mentally does me a world of good. The coldest it was so far this year was, I think, 3 degrees, and the wind chill was -17.
This is a daily routine for Seabrook resident Chucky Rosa.
The water's right around 38 right now, and feels pretty good. It's good for me.
Each morning, he hops in the car for a short ride to the beach.
He'll wait.
No matter what the weather, he comes here to jump in the water, recording the moment as a sort of inspiration.
Hey, good morning. This is Chucky Rosa reporting from Seabrook Beach. It's March 24th. The temperature is 40 degrees, the wind chill is 31, and the water temperature is 38.
If you're wondering why anyone would do this, we did too. Chucky Rosa is a tough-as-nails type of guy with a heart of gold. Known for his jiu-jitsu skills and good Italian cooking, his chili is award-winning. In many ways, the father of 6 is like many dads. But he also has a tragedy that haunts him.
They had a heart as big as this room. They'd do anything for anybody. They're tough kids, but not bullies. They were really good boys.
Chucky's sons, Vincent and Dominic Rosa, were active kids in the community with a struggle that's all too common. As teens, they both started a long battle with drug addiction.
They promised me that they would never try anything else, and unfortunately, it progressed to pills, and my son Dominic died of a overdose his third and final time when he was 21, and Vincent died of It was a fentanyl patch. It's a type of a morphine.
About a year apart, both Vincent and Dominic died from accidental overdoses. Their ashes were later scattered in the ocean near the family home. Sometimes in freezing cold weather, Chucky would jump in just to be closer to them. In fact, his regular swims started to attract attention.
Some other locals said, you know, that's pretty amazing. You should do something with it. And I said, like, what? And
the family wanted others to know their story, so the dangers of drugs wouldn't cause more family tragedies.
We knew that he goes in the water every day. You know, that was one thing. We said, what do you do? He goes in the water every day. Nobody does that. That's different. So that'll get people's attention, and we can film it.
Hey, good morning. This is Chucky Roser. I'm down here at the Hampton Bay.
And that is exactly what they did.
Hey, good morning. This is Chucky Roser. It's December 19th. Hey, good morning. This is Chucky Roser. It's Sunday, December 20th. Down here at the Bay in Hampton. It says it's 15 degrees, and I think it's, I don't know, it says it's -2 or something out. It's very snowy.
Rain or shine or even in snow, starting in January 2009, Chucky started jumping in the ocean every single day, as his wife, Mary.
What's the temperature again?
It's 11 degrees and a -4 chill factor.
Bravely rolls her camera.
It's very windy and it's a cold, cold, icy wind.
The clips are loaded onto a website they call Chucky's Fight for the world to see. Chucky's Fight is a program to educate kids and troubled teens about the dangers of drugs and alcohol, a battle Chucky knows all too well.
Managed to stay clean and sober yesterday. Hope everybody out there that's trying is doing the same.
To help stop the blight of drug abuse, Chucky started raising money with his year-round swims and teaching kids about his story. The reaction was swift. Kids of all ages have written him, saying his story kept them off drugs.
It makes me keep on keeping on, you know, to do the right thing. Because it is a struggle some days, you know, it's a struggle.
That struggle has paid off. Chucky's Fight started reaching more people. Soon youth groups and schools were inviting Chucky to speak.
I have a special group of people with me here today.
Corporate sponsors joined in the ocean jumps to help raise money. Chucky always welcomes people to join him on his daily dunks. But often he is alone with the memories of his sons, Vincent and Dominic.
There is days when it's crazy out there. The wind's going 40 miles an hour and it's below zero. And Mary she'll look at me and she say, "You're going?" And I go, it's almost like I have to, you know.
You may notice while I'm bundled up and freezing just feet away, Chucky feels pretty good after his ocean dip.
This is
Now it's
nice. It's not bad out. No goosebumps. Okay, it's good. It's all good.
In fact, this dad seems to have boundless energy for his cause.
Keep up with them.
Our camera guy, Chris, could barely catch him on the beach. When he's not swimming, Chucky also teaches self-defense classes, which, as he showed me, anyone can do.
I might grab like this.
But his most important hobby is creating a legacy for his two sons, hoping these two words will help those struggling with drug abuse win their own fight.
In my own small, quiet way, I feel good that I am making a difference.
You know, some people might think he's intimidating, but no, he's really sincere, and this is important to him. I mean, it's something he really wants to get across to people.
The future never gets any brighter when you burn the candle at both ends. So take some time for yourselves and your loved ones, and everything will be there when you get back. Thanks for joining me, and have a good day.
Well, good evening, everybody. Try that again. Good evening. Yeah, my name is Charles Rosa. Right now I live I grew up in Arlington, Mass. I had 6 children. Some of the things I do, I'm a mixed martial arts. I also like to garden. I do Bikram yoga, hot yoga. And as you see, I love the ocean. But the reason I'm here today is I said I had 6 children. I only have 4 children now because I lost my 2 oldest sons, Dominic and Vincent, due to accidental drug overdoses.
I almost lost a third son out of the 6, but he's been clean and sober. He lives in Florida. He's been clean and sober for 6 years, and he's actually fighting this weekend at the Boston, at the TD Garden. So I want to wish him good luck. And I have 3 more that you'd think that I'd be a lunatic worrying about if they're going to get into the same thing, but I do not worry about them. You couldn't put a gun to I have my youngest, the twin 18-year-old boys that, you know, they watch their brothers their heroes get put into a box when they were like 10 years old, and you couldn't get them to take a sip of beer or do anything if you put a gun in their head. But the point of that is they had to see a real tragedy like that, and I'm a big believer in, I'm hearing about the treatment centers, that's good, and I'm not a big believer in the Narcan, quite frankly, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But I think it's about education. If I was a better educated parent, and if my boys were better educated, I think that maybe they'd still be alive, and I live with that guilt every day. I thought it was a phase they was going through that was going to pass, and it never did. My son, Vincent, about when he was 14 years old, we got out of work early one day. I ran a wire factory for 27 years. Got out of work early, and I came home, and Vincent was in the bathroom he was getting sick, and I asked Dominic, what's wrong with Vincent? And he said that they were drinking vodka down at the bus stop. And as I was a single parent. I asked, you know, why, and they were bored or something like that. And it's not always peer pressure, but like and they promised me to say, Dad, I'll never try anything else. That other stuff is for losers, this, that, and the other thing. And it progressed to marijuana, and the marijuana turned into pills, and the pills turned into heroin. And a lot of people say, you know, well, you know, your kids are going to try something, and I really, you know, I beg to differ. You really have to teach them about abstinence, because the first time my son tried that fentanyl, it killed him, and his friends thought that that he was sleeping and he was overdosing. And I got a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from the Salem Hospital, and they said that my son was unresponsive, and I really didn't know what that meant. I went to the Salem Hospital, and fast forward a little bit, I went into a room that they told me I couldn't go into, and I said, well, that's my son. And there was a lady sitting about from me to this young lady away, and I asked, how's my son Vincent? And I could see him on a table that was about this high, about that long. It was a long table with his arms folded. And I asked her 3 times, and she wouldn't answer me. And she said, they didn't tell you. And I said, tell me what? And they said, well, he's dead. And I go, no, he's not. And I went over to him, and I shook him for, it seemed like 5 minutes, but it was probably 5 seconds. I told him to get up, and he didn't wake up. And he broke my heart that day. And then I always try to find something positive. I said, well, you know, at least I know Dominic will be okay, because God wouldn't do that to me twice. And about 9 months later, I got a phone call from the Winchester Hospital, and Dominic was doing really well. He was clean and sober. They would go through phases of being good for 6 months, and then they said, well, I can try it. I proved I can do it, and they played that game, and they stubborned themselves into an early grave. You know, you have to be diligent about it. You got to teach these kids that this stuff is poison. You have to make it part of their curriculum at the schools. You know, I speak at schools. I do, you know, drug and alcohol prevention workshops. But I'm one guy. They should have it at the schools several times a week, maybe even if it's for 15 or 20 minutes, to give the kids a flavor of. Because everybody learns different. Some people that don't read well might look at a video, that they don't like to look at a video. They might want to hear a speaker, but something to let these kids know that this stuff is poison, that they can't try it, or they could end up dead. And I lost my second son, Dominic, and then my third son went from being a little brother to the head of the household when I'm not here, and he didn't know how to handle it. And after a couple of failed attempts in treatment centers, he was able to find a passion in, you know, we all do some fighting, and he found a place in Florida where they took him in, and he's a professional fighter. It's a tough way to make a living, but he's doing that. And helping some people in Florida, and but you know, like I said, I think that if I was a better educated parent, maybe my boys would be here, and if they were better educated, and if when the time comes after the other speakers speak, I'm here not for you to leave your heads with your heads hung, you know, geez, this poor guy. If there's anything I can answer, any question about what I would have done different as a parent, or things that I did right, the things I did wrong, I will tell you, and I'll be very candid with you also. Probably some things you don't want to hear necessarily. I'm pretty black and white as far as my thoughts, but it's all experience. I am not a master social worker, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a policeman. I'm a guy who lost a couple of kids, and I spend most of my time out there now trying to educate them in my own small, quiet way, doing that, and getting guys into treatment. And a lot of them come to me with no money, no insurance, and as a matter of fact, tomorrow morning I'm bringing someone up to the Salvation Army in Portland, Maine. But it's just a step. It doesn't need to get to that. And as parents, you got to be diligent. And I know they started talking about what some of the signs are, but don't think that it's just pot or it's no big deal, because it is a big deal. The marijuana is many times stronger than it used to be, not to make light of what it used to be, but it changes your brain chemistry, it makes them lazy, it makes them lethargic. I see it almost daily ruin kids' dreams. So anybody that thinks it's okay to legalize it, you need your head examined as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, I don't want to get off, I don't want to go on that. It shouldn't be about the political stuff, but I believe 100% it leads to other things. And a lot of times in the parent groups, parents will ask, well, you know, I'm of age, should I get the alcohol out of the house? Should I be drinking in front of my kids? And I live with that guilt every day. Never drank with my kids, but my kids knew that I drank, and at least you can know if you're setting a good example. Those are some questions I'm answering before they're asked, but just so you have an idea of who I am, and that's all I got for right now. Thanks for listening, and
As Charles said, we're going to save some time at the end for questions for everyone on the panel. And on your tables, there are index cards. If you want to write down any questions, someone will come around and collect them. And there's also a sign-in sheet if you want your name added to our email list to let you know when our future events are. Go ahead and put your name and email address on there. So our next speaker is Josh. Josh is going to share his personal story. Josh?
How you doing, guys? My name's Josh. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in the town of Havehill. You know, I really don't know what I'm going to say here tonight. I hadn't thought about it. Hopefully I can help somebody in here. I'm going to try to make this as smoothly as possible. First of all, I'm a recovered heroin addict. I just want to say, if there's anybody in here that is, you know, parents or has lost somebody, I know personally that it was not your fault. There is nothing that my parents could have done, absolutely nothing, that would have stopped me from using drugs and alcohol. And I know anyone who has recovered from this disease will tell you the same thing. I've recovered from the disease of drug addiction and alcoholism. And when I say recovered, as in past tense, I mean I do not obsess about getting high anymore. I do not have to worry about getting high anymore because of what I do. And I'll get to that. First time, you know, I went to this school, actually. I went to Consentino Middle School, 6th grade through 8th grade, and I graduated from Havehill High. First time I ever smoked weed was back there in that parking lot. I think I was 14 years old. I went to St. Joseph's Catholic School. I left there, and I went to Silver Hill. And I went to a Catholic school, and it's very different from a public school. I transferred over to a public school, and I had to adjust very quickly. I didn't know anybody. An easy thing to do. was to smoke cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes. I met people, and it was just very easy to just get accepted by people. And I don't know that's exactly the reason why I started, but I'm going to go with that because that's the only thing that I can think of now. Does marijuana and alcohol always lead to bigger things? No, it doesn't. Can it? A lot of the times, yes, it does. For me, I believe it did because the first time I smoked, the first time I drank alcohol was the first time that I altered my mind. It got me out of myself, and I liked the way it felt. I really liked it, and I just ran with it. High school came along, new drugs came up, and little by little, I experimented. I was nervous. Every time I would do something, I was a little nervous. Nothing bad happened. I'd see other people doing it. So the fear kind of just went away, and it was acceptable. And if you guys think that these drugs aren't out there, I'm sure everybody knows they are. It's everywhere. We live in a society where drugs and alcohol are accepted, and it's everywhere. And I used to think I was different because I smoked weed and did drugs and drank differently than everybody else when I'd go to a party, And, it seems like all the kids that always did the right thing and, never drank, never smoked weed, that I grew up with, later on, high school and further on, now they all do the same thing. It didn't escalate like it did for me, but, they all smoke weed, they all drink, and I'm just here to tell the truth. The only reason I'm here tonight is to hopefully help somebody, even if it's just one person in this room. So it moved up, and I tried pills. The first pill I ever did was a Percocet, Perc 30, which is an opiate. It's pretty much heroin in the form of a pill. I did that, and I remembered it was just, made me feel awesome. I loved the way it made me feel. It was easy to hide. I didn't smell. No one had to know. It was quick, and it made me feel better than any drug I'd ever done. I did those about a year and a half, and I hit it very well until I couldn't hide it anymore. I realized after I stopped doing them for a couple of days that I had this physical dependency on it. I would get sick. I didn't know what it was. I learned out it was being dope sickness. You build up a dependency, you stop, you detox, feel horrible. I couldn't even stand up to take a shower. That's how miserable I felt. I weighed 120 pounds, and I was scared. I didn't want to be sick. And the only thing I knew how to do was to use. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to get sick, so I used. And the only reason I used, and people, and this is the thing, is like I used because I loved the way it made me feel. I didn't have this underlying reason why I used, and some people do, but most people don't. And the truth is, people look at you, it's like, why would you do this? It's like, because we like the way it makes us feel. We like the effects the drugs and alcohol produce. So, I couldn't afford my habit anymore. My paychecks were gone the day I got them. So I began to steal from my family after I had sold everything that I owned that had any worth, anything that meant anything to me, all the things I liked to do. I sold everything I had. And then I moved on because I didn't want to get sick. So I stole from my family. The people that we hurt the most are the people that are closest to us. And that's not fair. But that's usually how it goes. Because the truth is, we're all just scared. We're not, us alcoholics and addicts, we're not these big tough guys that are going to go out and, rob banks. You know what I mean? We're petty. We take from our family because we don't want to deal with the consequences. And, as I was doing these things, I didn't want to. You know what I mean? I knew what I was doing was eating at me inside. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. And I didn't know why I couldn't stop. I would tell myself every day, I'm not going to do this today. And I'd be driving down the street past the dealer's house. No. And then all of a sudden, I would just turn the wheel. like I was being controlled, and I didn't know why. I did not know why. Eventually I got caught. I got caught stealing. My family had a little intervention on me. That stuff didn't work. Once I had gotten caught from my family and stole everything I could from them, eventually I had to steal from others. I started to break into houses. I stole everything that I could, sold it all, and eventually I was caught for that too. I was arrested in Lawrence, and then the next day I was picked up by the lovely Havehill Police Department. I thank God every day for that, because that's the first time I truly believe if I wasn't arrested, I wouldn't be here right now, because my addiction got a lot worse. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. I got arrested. I was on an ankle bracelet for about 6 months. They gave me a break. I had a clean record. I was 17, just turning 18, and 3 years probation. They told me, do the right thing. They gave me plenty of rope to hang myself with. And I was good for 6 months. When I had this ankle bracelet on, I had to wear it to school. It was embarrassing. And then I was good for about 2 months after I had the bracelet off. I went to my senior prom. Things were good. I was sober. I would drink alcohol once in a while, kind of like a normal person would. I wasn't doing my drug of choice, so I thought I was sober. And I've learned there's a very big difference between being sober and being in recovery. Because while I was sober, I still wanted to get high. I still had this mental obsession every day that I had to fight. If you cracked a can of beer in front of me, my skin would crawl, because all I wanted to do was drink that beer. Anything that could get me outside of myself, I did. My buddy had some perk 30s. I was on my way to go to the gym. And during this 6 months, I filled my time with things. Once I had this bracelet off and I was doing good, I had 2 jobs, I had a car, I had a girlfriend. I was going to the gym. I looked good. I gained like 40 pounds. You picture me 120 pounds, like 30 pounds lighter than I am right now. And I just kind of filled these things. I filled up my time. I filled this void with all these materialistic things. And, I relapsed on those Percocets that day. I picked up my buddy. We were going to the gym, and he's like, hey, I got a few perks. Found a guy. He's like, oh, well, that sounds like a good idea. I've been sober for like 8 months. I can do it one more time. I can control it, do it once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks. I'm fine. I got this. I did those, and I think it was the next day I was using again. And let me tell you, being sober for that long and having no recovery work, my disease was doing push-ups in the back of my head. My disease was still growing. When I started using again, it was right where I left off. Actually, I think it was worse. I tried heroin. Hey, it's cheaper. You know what I mean? Does the same thing. Sniffed heroin for a while. Right back to stealing. You know what I mean? Hit it for a little while. And I always said I would never use needles. I would never touch a needle. That's gross. I'm better than that. Well, I got sick of spending a lot of money on drugs and watching somebody spend the fraction of the amount and then shoot it up, and then, they're as high as a kite. So I said, you know what, all right, let's try this. From the moment I felt that, I said, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is amazing, and why would I not want to feel like this as often as possible? That's what went through my mind. I did not like what I was doing, and I wanted to stop. My parents knew. I had my parents so sick, I had everybody around me sick. Because we don't just affect ourselves, we think we just hurt ourselves. As we get sick, the people around us get sick too. The manipulation, the lies. People walk on eggshells around us because they don't want to set us off. I used intravenously for about 5 months, and I overdosed. I turned blue, like they were saying. By the grace of God, my mom was in the next room, and she knew I had a problem, and something in her mind told her to go in my room. She found me blue. She gave me CPR, and I woke up. And I believe there's a reason I woke up, because, you know, what I've acquired since then has given me a life that I wouldn't trade for anything. I tried to go to detoxes before I overdosed. They said, your insurance does not cover this. You can't go to a detox. I couldn't afford a detox. My parents couldn't afford a detox. Once I overdosed and I went to the hospital, they said, you know, this is life-threatening now because you've overdosed. Apparently, they do not consider a heroin addiction a life-threatening illness because the withdrawals can't kill you. The drug can kill you, but the withdrawals can't. An alcoholic can go to a detox because withdrawals from alcohol can kill you. Withdrawals from benzos can kill you. So I left that hospital because, I had no other options left. I was brought to my knees. I was embarrassed. I wanted help, and I went to a detox in Worcester. I went to a Worcester detox for adolescents. Felt very out of place. I was the only heroin addict there. There was a bunch of young kids, that were just starting out, smoking weed and drinking. And nothing changed, I was there and I stayed there for like a month. Sober for like a month. Still felt the same. Still wanted to get high. I wanted to be well. I wanted to stop using. But I also knew that if my drugs were in front of me, I would do them, and there was nothing that I would be able to do to stop me and myself. So I left there. I talked to my probation officer. He gave me another chance. I blew my first one, and he said, "You are going to a residential. You are going to live there, or you are going to jail." It's another big part that really helped me. And, I'll say this is really hard, especially for people that are out on the streets actively using to get help because they can't stop. I had an intervention in my life. I was forced to go. I wanted the help, but at the same time, if I could have just said, no, I'm just going to go home and do this by myself, I'm going to go to AA, I'm going to go to NA, that's what I would have done. But he said, no, you're going to go here. You're going to live here. So I lived at Cab Danvers Detox in Danvers, Massachusetts. I lived there for 3.5 months. It's an adolescent, addiction treatment program. I lived there for like a month. First starting out, it was good. I was sober. I felt good. I looked good. But I still knew that I would get high. I didn't want to, but I knew that I would if it was there in front of me. A few people came in for a commitment about a month into my stay there. A commitment is when people come in and they speak, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And they were all recovered heroin addicts, alcoholics. And, I really liked what they had to say. They all recovered from this addiction. I knew that they were drug addicts. For the first 5 minutes they spoke, I knew they were drug addicts. And they had something different about them. They were well. They were happy. And, they knew how to stay sober. And it was different because I had gone to NA meetings before. I went to a couple AA meetings, and I heard a lot of things like, just keep coming. Just keep coming. Don't use no matter what. Just say no. Call me if you feel like you're going to use. Well, those things are great, but I couldn't stop using. I would go to NA meetings and I would get high. I would leave and I would get high. I would call people on the phone knowing that when I hung up, I was going to get high and there was nothing that they could do or say that was going to stop me. I couldn't say no. I have no willpower because I am a true addict. True addicts and alcoholics do not have willpower. We can't say no. And I learned this. I'm going to get to this actually. I told you I didn't know why I used and I couldn't stop using. My parents would ask me, oh, you've been sober for like 5 days. You just got through the withdrawals. You know, why would you do this again? And the most honest answer I could give them was, I don't know, because I didn't know. That was as honest as I could be. You know, I asked these guys, I said, what do you guys do? You know, like, and I would see people in meetings, you know what I mean? Like, sober for like 10 years, 20 years, miserable people. And I said, why would I want to be sober and miserable? Because they have no solution. They just say no every day because they have a little bit of willpower. Me, I didn't have any. You know, they just fight this every day. They fight that mental obsession and they're miserable. I would rather be using than be miserable because at least when I was miserable, I could use and feel better temporarily. So I asked them what they did, and they said, we take steps through the AA book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, AA, I'm a drug addict. And they said, it doesn't matter. Replace the word alcohol with drugs. Replace it with anything you want. It's addiction. Doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, whatever you like to do. And at the time, you know, I wanted what they had. I wanted to be done with this. I wanted to have my life back. I just wanted to have a normal life. I wanted to be able to be a good son to my parents, be a good friend, be a good boyfriend, have a job, have a life, have a career. Not have to worry about having a record. Just live life like a normal human being. So I started doing work with them in the book. It's called The 12 Steps of AA. I asked this guy to sponsor me. He said, yes, absolutely, but what are you willing to do? Are you willing to do anything it takes to stay sober for the rest of your life? And I said, yes, because I was miserable. And he said, okay, well, here's my number. Are you willing to call me? I said, yes. He said, we'll start with that. You call me. Show me that you're willing to put in a fraction of the effort that I'm willing to give you. Because I'm willing to give you everything that I have for free. But you just have to call me. So I called him. He started coming over to the detox that I was in, the program. He would come after work, covered in paint. You know, he works on cars, he's a mechanic, you know, works all day long, and would come over, and he would sit down in this room with me, an 18-year-old drug addict. And he would take me through the book. You know, these are steps. You take 1, you take 2, you take 3, you go up to 12. They're little baby steps, like learning how to walk. Each one leads you to the next one. And the first one I feel is the most important. Admitting that you're powerless over the disease of addiction, meaning I am powerless. I cannot have a sip of alcohol. I cannot smoke weed. Once I do, I'm powerless over it. I can't say no. You know, if I had a drink tomorrow, I might not be, you know, doing heroin the next day, but I guarantee you I'm going to continue to drink and continue to drink. And, you know, eventually I'll get back there. He gave me the reason why I used. He gave me an answer why I couldn't stop. He put a name and a face to every single thing that I had felt and that nobody could explain to me before. You know, I said, why do I keep using? You know what I mean? I'm an addict. I suffer from this thing. It's called a mental obsession. You know what I mean? I used that first time, right? I have this mental obsession to get high. I can't stop thinking about it. So eventually, I'm going to use because I can't fight this all the time or I'm just going to be miserable. And once I use, I have this thing that we like to call an allergy. You know? And the allergy, explained, is once you start, you can't stop. You use, you get this phenomenon of craving, you're irritable, restless, and you continue to use. And we don't have that off switch in our head that we can just shut off. You know, people don't think it's a disease, but it is. We don't have that switch where we can just stop. You know, my mom can go home and she can have a glass of wine with dinner and she can stop. That doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? My dad can have a beer and stop. Me, it doesn't make sense. Why have one beer? Why not just drink them all? And he said, this is, and you know, and I kind of like to explain the allergy like this. You know, if somebody has a peanut allergy and they eat peanuts, they die from that peanut allergy unless somebody comes up to them with an EpiPen and, you know, they don't die from that peanut allergy. Well, if I use heroin, I keep using heroin, I overdose, and then you have to come up and hit me with Narcan. A person with a peanut allergy doesn't die from that peanut allergy unless they eat peanuts. Someone with a drug addiction doesn't die from addiction if they don't use drugs. But if I can't stop thinking about using drugs, how do I stop? You get rid of the mental obsession. The 12 steps, taking them with a sponsor, someone who's been through them, knows them, taking them honestly, cures the mental obsession. It makes it go away. Sobriety just comes after that. I'll always have an allergy to drugs and alcohol. If I use tomorrow, I'm going to be using the next day. But I don't suffer from that mental obsession anymore, so I don't have to worry about getting high. Okay? My life was in shambles. I took the steps. I went through 1 through 12. They don't end. You go through 1 through 12, you do 10, 11, and 12 for the rest of your life. But they are very, very easy things that people can do. Normal people, nice people can do on an everyday basis without even thinking about it. Like helping others, not being dishonest, not being selfish. You know, praying to a higher power. It doesn't have to be God. Anything to get you outside of your head, because everything that I relied on, man, here on this earth to get me sober did not work. Suboxone, Vivitrol, you know, just going to a detox, going to meetings, just trying to say no. You know, my parents keeping me in the house, being on an ankle bracelet, them telling you you're going to go to jail, getting arrested. None of those things could stop me from using. So you go through this process. It's kind of like a little spiritual journey, okay? And it doesn't just cure that mental obsession. It teaches, what it's done is it has taught me how I am as a person. Because, you know, I was not a very good person. To you guys, I probably seemed like a great person because we're manipulative, we lie, we're very smart people, and we can make you believe anything that we want. We can make it look real good on the outside, but on the inside, there's a whole other thing going on. And like I said, I'm just here to tell you guys the truth. You know, and sometimes the truth is not what you want to hear. I learned that even before drugs and alcohol, I was not a good person. I was selfish. I was dishonest. You know, I was manipulative. I didn't do right action. All I cared about was me. You know, I didn't care about anybody else. The disease of addiction is a selfish disease. And I realized through this process that the cure, once you've gotten that mental obsession to go away, is selflessness, doing for others, commitments, sponsorship. Now I sponsor other people. I go help other addicts because that's step 12, to give it back, to help others. I can help somebody that nobody else can because I'm a recovered heroin addict. You know, counselors have a hard time helping heroin addicts because they can't relate to them. You know what I mean? If I was them actively using, why would I want to tell them some of the sick, twisted things that I did? Because they're going to look at me like I was crazy, because I was. But if I had told that to somebody who's done the same things, they can relate and they can say, yeah, I did that too. They're not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge anybody else, because there's nothing that they could tell me that I would say, oh, I would understand. And it's hard. It's so hard because, I was given the solution. I mean, literally, it was like handed to me and I took it. Instead of trying to run through the door, I just took the key, gave up, and opened the door. I let other people make my decisions for me. For the first time in my life, I stopped fighting. I stopped always having the answer. And I just threw my hands up. I said, okay, you want me to do this? Okay, 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 okay. And life got better. Every little materialistic thing that I lost, I totaled my car, lost my girlfriend, lost my family's trust, lost where I had to live, almost lost my life. I've gotten every single one of those things back. I am proud. I'm so happy that this happened to me, because if I wasn't an addict, I wouldn't have what I have now. If I didn't go through that process, even if I was sober, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't know how I am as a person. I wouldn't know my character defects that I have to work on. It's just crazy because I can be a good son to my parents now. I can be a good boyfriend to my girlfriend. I can be a reliable employee. And I am. But, I was put in that position where, I had no choice. I wanted it, and it was offered to me, so I took it. And a heroin addiction, untreated, is a death sentence. I mean, it really is. And, that's just the truth. Apart from divine intervention, divine help, there's really nothing you can do. You either keep using, like they say, go on to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or you find another way. And I found that other way through the process of the 12 steps of AA with a sponsor. Doing it on the streets is a lot harder because humans have free will. We can make our own decisions, And I'm not saying that I'm not an addict anymore, because I am. If I use, I'll keep using. I just don't have to worry about using because I continue to do the last 3 steps, which are very little easy things to do, and that obsession just goes away. It's not there anymore. So if there's just there's anything I can say is just, if you know somebody that needs help or whatever, there are places, there's a lot of people dying, but I know for a fact there are hundreds, thousands of people recovering every day. I've met hundreds of people. I live in a house with 4 other recovered heroin addicts. We have our own place in Woburn. We take addicts in on the couch. We teach them the 12 steps if they want it. We take their phone, we take their money, we make their decisions for them if they're willing to. We say, are you willing to do what we say? Are you willing to do anything? They start taking steps, they get better, that mental obsession goes away, they get a job, they get a car, and they live life like a normal human being, and then they give it back. Because how selfish would it be if I kept this to myself? If I just literally learned how to save people's lives, right? My life, and kept it to myself and didn't offer it back. How dare I? Because I can help people that nobody else can. And there's a ton of us out there. AA is a great program. And A is a great program. I personally think that the program through AA is what worked for me, because I was a hopeless drug addict. It's what worked for me, and I feel like if I didn't go through it, if I didn't get a sponsor, if I didn't go to an inpatient, live somewhere, you know what I mean? So a safe environment, I wouldn't be here today. I know I wouldn't. So guys, just, Thanks for letting me come here tonight and just going to leave off with a positive thing. Like I said, there's a lot of people recovering and there is help out there. AA, look up AA Big Book 12-step meetings. You know, go there with the person that you know that's using for support. You know what I mean? Try to help them. You know, look for a sponsor. Call that sponsor. You know? But in the end, it has to be their decision. I could take my will back tomorrow and say, you know what, nope, I'm good. I don't need to do the steps anymore. I got this. And I would relapse eventually because we have free will. But I'm scared to death of using again because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be miserable. My life's going to fall apart, and everyone else's life around me is going to fall apart, and then I'm going to die. So I continue to do what I do and help others. And I'll be here after if anybody has any questions and needs my number. Thank you, guys.
That's a hard one to follow. I forgot to say earlier that we have, across the hall, we have Carol LaBelle from the school department. If there's any kids here or teenagers that want more information about substances, she's across the hall. And Josh started to talk about what we can do now. So that's where we're going to go at this point. So we're going to hear from the police department about what they've been doing to address the problem. We have a couple of the lieutenants that are going to speak. Lieutenant Hawk.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Some of the things we've been working on, and one of them is a long-standing grant under Deputy Thompson and Megan Shea. That's been a community collaborative effort where we're trying to suppress gang activity and suppress youth violence. We work together closely with the outreach with the community as far as courts, probation, neighborhood groups, schools. And what we hope to do is, in times like this, take those partnerships that we've developed and also help to address the issue that we're here talking about tonight, which is opiate addiction. That's just one of the programs.
Lieutenant Pistone.
Good evening, Lieutenant Pistone. Like Lieutenant Hawk, we also have another grant, which we're fortunate. This is our second year with the help of Chairman Dempsey and the other legislative delegation. They helped us to get this grant. And we had a lot of success last year. Last year, what was making the headlines was a lot of gang activity up on Mount Washington. Through these funds with the municipal staffing grant, we're able to do proactive policing, okay? So we're just not going and answering calls. We're out there actually targeting areas and targeting specific people. And with that grant, we're able to reduce crime in Mount Washington by 20-odd% and citywide by 12% last year. And again, a lot of that is thanks to the grant that we received. This year, obviously, all the headlines are heroin overdoses. And I've heard Council McGonigal say it, and he's absolutely right. There's no way we're going to arrest our way out of this problem. As you just heard from Josh, who did a great job, and from Mr. Rosa, you know, it's education. You gotta get with your kids at a young age. I remember when I was in high school, it was a thing that went home to our parents. They had to sign a permission slip for us to see a certain video. And this video was a video of somebody putting a syringe, a needle, into their arm. I remember what a lasting impression that had on me, you know, to this day. And I think we need to go back to the education. Again, with the municipal staffing grant, by all means, you know, we're going to be targeting our drug dealers. As you heard from Josh, you know, the addicts, the users, they're not the enemy. They need help. It's the people that are supplying these drugs, And, you know, we need the help of, you know, of our lawmakers to, instead of making the penalties, which in the last few years have actually gone the other way for drug dealers, we need to stiffen those penalties, and we need the help of our courts to, you know, for our major drug dealers to really make it so that it's not, you know, there's plenty of, you know, plenty of demand, okay, in the city for drugs, and, you know, you might take drug dealer A off the street, but drug dealer B, there's plenty of money to be made, and he's going to be right back at it the next day. Somebody's going to fill his shoes. So as long as the penalties aren't great and the demand is there, we're going to continue to have this problem. So, you know, that's the enforcement side of it, and there's a lot more drug dealers than there are police officers, I can tell you that. And there's probably always going to be. So again, we got to stiffen the penalties, but education-wise, you know, we got to get to our kids at a young age. Sergeant Buckley and I recently saw General McCaffrey speak. He was a drug czar under President Clinton, and one of the things he talked about, they did a study on kids that did not use drugs, and they asked him, you know, why didn't you use drugs? And the overwhelming response was, I didn't want to disappoint my parents, my pastor, my coach. You know, so very important that we also get our kids involved in activities so that they don't want to disappoint the people that they look up to. But also, you know, that's difficult. You know, we have a lot of households that, you know, it might be single-parent households, and we got to find a way so that they have mentors and people to look up to. So, but again, going back to the missile staffing grant, you know, we'll be out there this year, and we'll be targeting, you know, the dealers and the gangs that supply this, and doing our best. And a lot of the meetings we've had, Deputy Thompson has made it very clear that we can't do this unless we have the communication from the community. And unfortunately, due to all the tragic deaths we've had lately, we've seen a real increase in people that have been calling the department, leaving tips. People are starting to get mad, and you can see that by the turnout tonight, that people have had enough of seeing people die and have their lives ruined by this terrible, you know, disease and you know, caused by this heroin epidemic. So we encourage you, you know, please call, provide us with information. And we'll do all that we can do on our side. Thank you.
So again, we have those cards on the table. If anybody wants to ask any questions of the panel, we'll have someone go around and collect them. And I just wanted to introduce the panel and also some of the resources we have in the back of the room. So in the back of the room, we have Susan Grady from NFI, a team coordinating agency. She's representing the outpatient department and the SOAP program. So she has information back there if anybody's interested in any of those services. We have the YWCA Domestic Violence Services right next to Susan. We have the Spectrum Methadone Clinic. We have the Substance Use Navigation Project. Comfort Home Care, we have Charlie Manzi. Holy Family at Merrimack Valley, we have Karen Kennedy and Joanne Bresnahan. We have more in the back and also on the panel. What am I missing? We have the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center Overdose Prevention Services, which is Steve, and Perla, I think, is in the back. She didn't make it. What did I miss? And we have the Lawrence Methuen Community Coalition, which is a similar task force to what we're getting started. They've been going for about 6 years, I think, so we'll be learning from them. And Learn to Cope, which we have Kathy Daly, who's on the panel. And we also, on the panel, we have Phil Leahy, who can share some personal experiences. And we have Marianne Frangoulis. You said it. From Moore. And we have Sergeant Megan Buckley from the police department. So I think we're going around. Does anyone have cards at their table? If you want to raise your hand, we'll have someone pick up any questions. And if anyone's going to ask a question directly, we're going to have you come up to the microphone so everyone can hear you. I know some people don't like that.
She's already standing, so she has to do it.
It should be on.
I do want to say very sorry about your children, and I want to say you're a very brave young man, and that your journey is your own journey, and God bless you for your journey, you know, and that's your journey. No one can take that away from you. And I feel that a drug addiction is a single person. It's not a group thing, even though it takes a group of people to relate, and your journey is what helps someone. But I also believe that you have to realize that you were put on this earth alone, you came through this, you came from your mother alone, and that you have to be responsible for yourself alone. But my question is, when does Suboxone and methadone end? Because I think that is a bunch of crap. I think Suboxone and methadone is just another way of putting people on synthetic heroin. I don't think you're stopping anyone. I think that when they go into treatment plans, drug addicts go into treatment, heroin dealers or people with drugs go into treatment programs, and it's a cycle. They get off the street, they get clean, they go to the drug treatment plans, they get all the meds that they can to get them to where they have to go. Someone brings in, they go to the next little portion of the treatment plan, they get heroin right when they're in there. They get, drug dealers come in clean, dirty so that they can bring in the drugs. The people that are sick on the drugs get off the streets because they can't afford the drugs anymore, so they go into the treatment plan. And then when they get on the Suboxone or the Vivitrol or whatever that was called, the shot, and then the methadone, they're just still doing heroin. So ultimately, I just feel like the truest answer, which is probably the hardest answer for this day and age right now with internet and media, is we have to be responsible for our people. We have to ask those questions. We have to be nosy. We have to ask everybody. I give more money to kids on the street, young men and women with these crazy stories about how they need money, and I just feel like that could be my kid, and I'm going to give them the money because I don't know what else could happen to them. And I'm poor, and I give my money away to keep this kid one step from doing something worse. But when does Suboxone and methadone end?
So we're going to give the panel a chance to answer. We have Phil Leahy that's going to share.
Yeah.
They should be able to hear you.
Is that good?
Yep.
All right. I have something to say. I want to touch on the subject of Suboxone and methadone. Then I do have 5 minutes I'd like to say why we're here. Suboxone and methadone, I'm not a fan of it, okay? But, okay, if used in a proper way, it can be used as a tool to help you along the journey. I'm not a fan of it. I prefer them to go the other way, but again, it can be used if the program is set up right, if they use it as a tool to go along with their recovery, meetings, sponsors, so forth like that. It can be used as a tool. The unfortunate part is, probably 80–90% of the people that go into Suboxone and methadone, they're looking for a quick fix. There is none. So, can it be used? Can it be a tool? Yes. All right, now, my name is Phil Leahy. I'm the father of a heroin addict that has 6.5 years recovery. This gentleman's right. Thank you. This gentleman's right. When somebody ODs, front page of the paper, a lot of people in recovery. My daughter just did 6 years. Another one I went to did 9 years. Those things don't make the paper. All right? They're very big accomplishments, but they don't make the paper. Now, I know that the reason that this task force was formed was because of the rash of overdoses you had. And, you know, obviously, not just in Havehill. I was in Salem speaking last night. They had 12 there. There's a rash of overdoses. Coming here, these forums, and I've been to more than I can count, having a task force, it's nice. And sharing the stories and some of the information and some of the facts and so forth, that's nice, okay? But the biggest accomplishment is you've got all you people here. And I don't think you really came here to hear some feel-good stories or to hear some not-so-feel-good stories. You really want to know what can be done. Well, the first step you've done is by coming here. Because I'm going to tell you right now, we have a state delegation who formed what we're very proud to say is a Merrimack Valley Prevention and Substance Abuse Project. We welcome Havehill to join us in our fight. We have a huge community between Methuen, Lawrence, Andover, across the border in New Hampshire where they're having trouble. We're working on solutions. We're pressuring our state delegation. We're going after our local officials. We're giving them suggestions. We sat down with Nikki Songas and we told her what we're looking for. You know how you do this? Communities get together. The bigger the community group, the more input you have. You can't just come to these things, listen to a little information, listen to a few stories, go away and forget about it. Because I've made this speech so many times to so many forums, and then they die. You people came here because you have a genuine interest and hopefully a genuine fear. I'm going to guess, and I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hand because I wouldn't want to embarrass anybody, but I'm going to guess most of you have probably been affected by a loved one. A lot of you may be carrying the shame and the guilt. All right? Hopefully there's a lot of you out there that haven't been affected. And maybe you're getting ready to educate yourself because you have younger kids and you're afraid what could happen to them. Because you know what? The addict of today is not the addict of 20 and 30 years ago. The addict of today is my daughter. Middle class. All right? And why is she an addict? And you're right, there's no guilt on the parent, but there is fault. Because my daughter will never do that. My daughter would never touch heroin. We're not the kind of people who use heroin. Well, they are. And a lot of you out there know exactly what I'm saying, and a lot of you know exactly where I'm coming from. You've come together as a community. I'll be around after. If you would like to be involved in our community group, boy, would we love to have you. We would be thrilled to have you. Because the more we have, the more ideas we have, and the more pressure you can put on. Because you know as well as I do, there is definitely strength in numbers. Those of you who have addicts and you don't know where to turn to, there's a lot of people around here. There's people at this table that can tell you where to go. They can help you find resources. They can help you save your kid, and even more important, save your sanity. The fella down there knows what it's like to lose a child. I got that phone call from the Lawrence General Hospital that my daughter OD'd. I went down there not knowing if she was alive. I was one of the lucky ones. I've been fighting this disease ever since then. I'd like you to fight it with me. Please, come and see me. I'd love to have you come to our meeting. Thank you.
Mary Ann, do you want to answer that too?
Sure. Hi. My name's Mary Ann Frangulas. I am a person in long-term recovery, and I'm representing people in recovery, families and friends across this whole state. Belong to MORE, Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. The more you do, the more you want to do. And I'm really pleased to be in here because I believe that everybody that's in here wants to make some positive change. And you know that can happen. I can say for myself, I started to get active around this whole piece back in the 90s when I saw treatment starting to dwindle, insurance starting to cover less, funding going down, and turning around and where's the people? grace of God, I got mentored into knowing that I could have a voice. And we do believe that we can educate the public, and we have. And it's with coalitions and what have you, but over the course of time, coming to this, you just heard Representative, your House, you know what the House Ways and Means Chairman does? He leads the budget, and that's kind of big in this state, so that's pretty good. You got somebody here in Haverhill that does the budget for the whole state. And all the, oh yeah, that's right. And then all the people, the legislators go to him, but you've got him right here. And lo and behold, through the course of time, and it doesn't, like this disease is denial. But you know what? Through our pain, we're waking up. And as long as we stay vigilant, we can make positive change. As I talked about, back then, the insurance problem started to happen. The doctors were prescribing everything that was out of sight. And along comes OxyContin, and ba-boom, you got all the young people using it. And the other piece is speaking up for the funding. Our substance abuse services that are publicly funded have grown, not to the point where it is totally needed, but thank God these legislators in the front row are listening, and that there is power in your voice. And I can say that whoever thought that we could stand up. Let me tell you something. I was at a hearing at the state legislature. We brought in about 20 families. Maybe some of you were there. Maybe it was 30 families. They all shared how the insurance wasn't covering. They brought in pictures of their family members that died. And they were told about, and you've heard of treat and street, spin dry detox. Well, they spoke up about it. And being told by an insurance, you didn't fail at outpatient. Anybody here ever told that they failed at outpatient services? Well, lo and behold, people told their story. And the chair of that committee, when the insurance companies got up, said, "Excuse me, are you the only two people in this room telling the truth and everybody else is lying?" And that really and truly, it was the power of the everyday person that is in this room, that was in that room, that has the power to make change. But if we don't talk about it, it doesn't happen. But you are, because you're here. And that's why we have learned through more to help our people learn about different resources that are in this particular booklet, how to navigate this whole system, how to educate your legislators, but you don't need me to tell you that. Your stories can, and you have legislators here that will listen. So, and the other thing that we are trying to do is to set up peer-to-peer. That means person in recovery, helping you to get the kind of services, such as when you leave treatment and you don't know where to go and try to get help. If you happen to leave jail, we want to see it so that you can get help and get help right away. And that's an important thing. It's not here yet. It's in the planning stages. And that's why, like, the disease is step at a time, the recovery is step at a time, and making changes. As I'm visualizing this room, I would love to see the PTA come together and say, we want education about alcohol and drugs and recovery and prevention in our schools. Wouldn't that be a wonderful, wonderful thing? You heard it from your police. This is great. You're going to make it good in the hood because you're doing what you should. Very good.
And we have Kathy Day from Learn to Cope. Do you want to say something?
Good evening. So Marian's like a shot of adrenaline for me every time I listen to her. She gets me going. So I'm here representing the agency Learn to Cope, and we are a peer-led support network for anyone struggling with someone else's addiction. So we focus on working with family members and loved ones who have individuals in their life struggling with addiction to opiates or other drugs. We are 10 years old. We have 16 chapters in Massachusetts. I have a lot of information in the back of the room. We were started by a wonderful woman, Joanne Peterson, who's our founder and executive director, whose son struggled with prescription pill misuse. Her life got out of control, his life got out of control, and at the time, she really didn't know where to turn. And as a result of her struggle and his journey, she started Learn to Cope, and hoping to be able to provide a safe space for folks to come together, to get resources, to get education, to get support, and most of all, to get hope. Our meetings consist of trained peers, so family members and loved ones lead the meetings, and it's a balance of sharing, and then we also have professionals from the outside come in and explain things like how to navigate the treatment system, what's a Section 35, what's the difference between a sober house and a halfway house, what does it look like if my son or daughter is using. There's a million topics. So we have folks that come in and explain that, so we're getting education, as well as we have folks in long-term recovery that come in and speak and give our members hope, as well as we're the first parent network in the country to be able to train our members in Narcan. So everyone that comes to a Learn to Cope meeting gets to learn how to recognize the signs and symptoms of an overdose, and if they'd like, as part of the DPH pilot program, can get trained in Narcan and walk away with it. And we've had a tremendous success rate as far as the number of Learn to Cope parents and family members that have come back to report that they used their Narcan and saved a loved one from an overdose. If anyone's been to a Learn to Cope meeting, it's a very special place. It's people with a lot of heart. You can go there and you can really tell what's going on with your life, how crazy, unmanageable, you wouldn't believe this, you wouldn't believe that. You can get hope. Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry, but we definitely laugh because we all need a place to go to be able to explain what's going on. People get strong, they start talking about addiction. They may come in and not tell anyone that they're coming to meetings, and after a while they're telling friends, or they're identifying other people that they think might need the resource and saying, hey, I go to this meeting, Learn to Cope. So the closest Learn to Cope chapters to you all in Havehill would be Lowell, which meets on Wednesday nights at the Saints campus of Lowell General, and then Tewksbury, which meets on Tuesday evenings at Tewksbury Memorial High School. And there's information on the back, and I'm here if people have questions. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
I have a question. I was actually wondering, we have two little boys in the school system. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. We have two little boys in the school system, and I totally agree about having more people get into the school system and talk to the kids. I feel like they don't really hear much, and I really feel like we do need to, get to the little ones as early as we can. We have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and their dad, my husband, is a recovering heroin addict of 14 years. We speak to them often. As far as parents on this end, we speak to our kids very often, and we feel like they don't hear about it too much in school. And my big question was, who do we get in contact with? We have contacted the school principals and secretaries as far as maybe having my husband go in telling his story or whatever, but it seems to kind of get nowhere. We've talked to the secretaries, we've spoken to principals, we've contacted secretaries in Jim Scully's office, the mayor as well, Havehill, and no one seems to get back in touch with us. So our whole thing is, where do we go from here? Like, where can we have maybe some more with the kids?
Here a little bit. You're asking about more information in the schools. The schools have been very involved in the task force. We have one person here tonight. Oh, couple.
Hi everyone, Paul Magliochetti, I'm on the Havehill School Committee. Thank you very much for the question. We're going to be taking this up at the school committee level, and we'll be coordinating some sort of educational program, and we'll be talking about having guest speakers come to the various schools, because we do think it's an important issue. Like this gentleman said earlier, Josh, you're very impressive, by the way. You really resonated, I think, with a lot of people. You all were, but you in particular. I have a son that's 19, and you really hit home with me. But these guest speakers, I think they can have a great impact on our students, especially the younger ones at the high school, middle school level, but even at the elementary level. Before I came here tonight, I have a 9-year-old son at home, and he asked me where I was going. I said I'd go to a meeting, and he said, but it's not Thursday night. Thursday nights are school committee meetings. And I said, well, it's a meeting at Consentino School about drug use and drug addiction. And he said, he wasn't even that aware of it, and I thought they would have maybe talked about something at school. And he said, kind of like because I just had surgery, kind of like the drugs that you took when you were on surgery. And I said, yeah. I said, but Daddy only took one and then didn't use the rest. Some people use the bottle and then more. And we talked about it a little bit. So just me coming here tonight got the conversation going. And I think that there are little things that can be done at the educational level in the schools. It can be incorporated in different ways that it's not offensive to anyone. And, because you always have certain people that say, well, I don't know if I want my child exposed to this, or that. Don't want them talking about it. But there's always a way to do it in a way that's not going to be offensive. So these are the kinds of things we'll talk about at the school committee level, and we'll try to spread it out throughout the district. Our superintendent, Jim Scully, is a great leader, and I know he's going to be at the forefront of whatever we do. So you'll be hearing more about this.
I'd just like to say a couple things. My wife really isn't good at coming up in public speaking, and neither am I, but we did try to get into the schools. It's a little harder because I think when they look at my criminal record, it's extensive back then, so they do a Corey check, so you're not allowed into the schools for certain things. On the other side of it, being a recovering heroin addict and being born and raised in the city, I grew up over in Bradford, where Bobby Pastone's from and stuff like that. Pretty proud of the city. I thought there would have been a lot more people here. I bring my 2 sons who sit down there because I listen to Mr. Rosa's story, and I don't want that to be me someday. I don't want to bury my 2 boys, and I tell myself all the time that if they ever get addicted to drugs or something, I take a leave of absence from work to try to handcuff myself to them, because what my mother and father went through, who have passed on now, I was born in a good family and stuff like that, and then I wound up a heroin addict, alcoholic, and drug addict. And the first guy that turned me on to heroin, he's not here no more. I had a brother-in-law that died from the overdose, and the list goes on and on. I've had several drug overdoses from heroin myself. When my father came home and he found me with a needle in my arm, and I thought that I wouldn't use intravenously. But that happened. But I'm awful proud to be from the city, and that's why I thought there would have been a lot more people here. And I used to say to my wife said, well, why don't you go to the schools and talk? And we tried to make phone calls, and I understand it's a little bit harder. You don't want somebody that's actively using to go into the schools, and it's a safety thing for the children, and I understand all that. But I think it does start with educating the kids, even at a young age. Our youngest is 8, and my wife goes, well, do you think if you go in and you talk to 8-year-olds, they're going to get it? And I said, well, when the kids woke up in Bradford and they found their mother and father dead in the bedroom, do you think they got it then? Because it was far before that things were going on that probably weren't right in the house, that if the kids had somebody to talk to or could go relate to it, because the overdose is one thing, and the unfortunate thing of them losing their lives, but the living conditions and things that go up to that, as far as all the money and everything going out for the drugs and what goes on, it's a chain of events that happens long before the fatal, overdose. So I just wish there was more we could do for the kids. Like I said, I heard Mr. Rosa's story, and it's heartbreaking, but I don't want to bury my 2 boys. And that's why I came tonight. I'm awful proud to be from the city, and I wish there was more. And like I said, I grew up in Bradford with Bobby Pastone, and thank you. But on the other side of things, when I had problems with the law and stuff like that, me and my wife were, just a funny story, out for a run around the lake and stuff, and we finished up the run at the lake, and I seen Bobby come in the woods with Megan, and I kept thinking, wow, this is weird, because I don't think I did anything wrong, but they were looking for some guy that was out over at the lake that had done something to some young lady. So I said, well, this is kind of strange. Maybe we should run around the lake and see if we can find the guy. But it's a lot better being on this side of things, and I just wish there was, hopefully we can come together and do something for this terrible problem. Thank you.
I also wanted to say that the school has been a big part of the task force, and they are talking about revamping the health curriculum to include more information about drugs. And Kara has some information across the hall if anybody wants to talk more about that. If you want to stop in after. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming. Thank you for the committees here, city, state, police department. Thank you, and all the residents. My name is Mike Harris. I run a sober house here in Havehill. I see the problem every day, all day, every day, for years and years. My question is, when somebody enters into the hospital that has this addiction issue and problem, they get turned away. Why? Why don't they get treatment? Somebody goes in with a broken arm. Do they not treat them? Somebody goes in with a serious illness. Do they not treat them? They're not getting treated. They're being asked to leave in the middle of the night, and they got a serious, deadly problem. I want to know why. That's a big question. I don't expect it now. This is a beginning. This is an issue that we're beginning. So I think there's a lot of answers coming through all the people that are willing to put their foot forward. It's going to take some time, and I know there's some people who have lost people that want the answers now. But I think we need to just understand that we're working at it, we're doing some things about it, and this is, I think, a great turnaround. And I thank you very much.
Hi. My name is Deb Canagio, and I actually live in the city, and I have two little grandchildren that just started coming from Catholic school. They just started at Havehill this present year. I do sexual advocacy for the YWCA in Havehill and Lawrence, and I also work for the Trauma Intervention Program as a volunteer, 60 hours a month. I'm going to tell you just a little story, and I hopefully might be able to answer your question. I got a call last night. I was on call. I'm going to do 12-hour shifts to Lawrence General Hospital for a 38-year-old in cardiac arrest. When I got there, they explained to me that they'd already tried to revive him 4 times at the hospital and once in the bus, in the ambulance on the way. They could not do anything more. They had him intubated, and that would be life support, and he was breathing. But I don't know if anybody understands the fact that when you're intubated, doesn't mean that your heart won't stop, okay? His blood pressure was extremely low, and they were keeping him breathing. That doesn't mean he wouldn't have went back into cardiac arrest, and they just could not do anything more for this gentleman. His wife explained to me that they were from Manchester, New Hampshire, came to Lawrence to buy some drugs. He just recently got out of jail 3 weeks ago, and it was his 5th time doing drugs. And he stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts in Lawrence, and he shot up. Gentleman was a heavy-set man, 430 pounds. He had a $20 bag of heroin. But whatever it was that he shot up was enough to take his life. Okay? So his wife was there by herself, and that's what I did. I went and sat with her for an hour and a half, going back and forth in between until they decided they couldn't perform CPR anymore, and they were waiting for the mother to show up so that she could say goodbye to her son before they took them off life support. One of the answers that you say that when people go to the hospital, I see it all the time, they go there because they want the help, but then they want to leave to go outside and smoke a cigarette, or they want to leave to go out and get a drink, or they want to leave to go outside and talk to their friend who's sitting in the car. When you go to the hospital for any treatment and you're inside the ER, you're not allowed to leave. The nurses and the security people tell them all the time. Sometimes they get spooked, sometimes they get scared. And you know what? If I'm there on a sexual assault call and somebody comes in with an overdose, I will go into that room, I will talk to whoever. I swear, I think I live more in Lawrence General Hospital, in Holy Family Hospital, in Merrimack Valley than I sleep in my own bed at night. I do not have any young children. My son-in-law is a police officer in Lawrence, and he's on the, and my daughter and I own a business, 2 businesses in Lawrence. And I'm gonna tell you something. My grandchildren are 10 and 6, and I asked my 10-year-old that goes to Havehill, he's in 5th grade, do you know anything about drugs? And he said to me, just like this, I don't know what drugs do, Nani. I know what you're on call for all the time. But my friend just lost his father, and they said it was because he was sticking needles in his belly. That's 10 years old. So when you say that you need more education in school, I definitely think that it's what it is. Because Josh, you were the type of person that I'm listening to your story and I'm saying, I helped your parents. So if you were an overdose, okay, I was there with that parent, and you don't know. When you get a call saying your child's in the hospital, they're not going to tell you what they're in the hospital for until you get there. And then sometimes you're sitting in that patient room, in that quiet room for an hour while they're working your husband or your loved one or whatever. So do yourself a favor. When you see somebody, offer them the help. They may not take it, but offer it to them. That's one of the steps that Josh was saying. If you can just reach out to one person, you make a difference in one person's life, believe me, it'll make you sleep better at night. And I hope I answered some of your questions, because those people are the ones that don't want to stay, and once they leave, they won't let them come back until like 2 hours later, or change a shift, and then they come back again. So most of the time when they go there for help, they don't want to stay because they want to smoke a butt. And I've seen the nurses argue, let him go out and have a cigarette and let him come back in. What's the big deal? He's here for help, but it's policy. So I don't know if that needs to be addressed somewhere else, but believe me when I tell you, it's really tough to be out there with those family members viewing these bodies, because that's what I do. And it's not a pretty scene. Thank you.
So I just want to give Sergeant Buckley a chance to say a few things from the Haverhill Police Department.
Yes, hello. I'm Sergeant Megan Buckley. I'm assigned to the narcotics unit with the Haverhill Police Department. And, well, a few things I'd like you to know. First of all, our goal is obviously the law enforcement end of it. And education and prevention and all those things are great, but we need, and we desperately need, the assistance of the public to locate and identify the individuals in this city who are selling these drugs. And I know there's a stigma that goes with calling the police. You become a rat, you become a snitch. Well, if I could associate this drug to anything else, maybe in the world right now, that's a hot topic, I would associate it to the Ebola virus. If you knew of somebody in your community who was willingly spreading the Ebola virus, would you hesitate to call the police? No. This is the same thing. So I ask, and I hope that if you're aware of somebody who's selling drugs, any drugs, because it's not just heroin, marijuana, cocaine, anything, if you could contact us. There's numerous ways to do it. You can contact us anonymously. You can leave us anonymous tips. You can go right on our Facebook page and leave us information. It's with your assistance that we can do our jobs better.
A few other resources I want to make sure to mention. We talked about the anonymous tip line. There's also a pill disposal site at the police station. Opiate pills are a huge problem too, so if you have pills laying around that you're not using, get rid of them. And at TCA we have a needle disposal site. If you see needles, or if you have needles to dispose of, you can get rid of them there. There's 2 family support groups starting, like I said earlier, at Sacred Hearts and at TCA. And I want to let everyone know about our next event, which is going to be at Haverhill Public Library, February 26th. And we'll be showing the video Anonymous People, and we'll have another panel discussion, so there'll be more chance to come and get some more information, ask more questions. So I hope to see a lot of you there. And I want to end with a raffle from the Lawrence Methuen Code.
Hello. Delilah from the Lawrence Methuen Community Coalition. I run the Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force, and I brought a t-shirt. It says, keep calm and stay drug-free. So if you have the number ending in 954, you're the winner. There you go.
want to thank everyone for coming, and the mayor's going to say a few words before you leave, but as you leave, I just want to also say be really careful outside of here. It's very slippery.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. It's very icy out. Please be careful, and thank you so much for coming. I'll see you at our next event. Thank you.